Alright guys, for today's science lesson, we will be working in our science journals to complete our Atomic Lab Part 2. Remember, this was Atomic Lab Part 1, where we looked at different materials with our eyes and also looked at them under a microscope and drew the difference and then discussed some of those differences down here below. Today, we're going to be doing Atomic Lab Part 2. So we'll be filling out this paper. So the information you need to know. So everything in existence is made up of matter, right? This pen is matter, this watch is matter, my beard is made of matter, my eyeballs, this table we're on, the air I'm breathing, that's made of matter. This water in my cup is made of matter. The ice you hear rattling around is made of matter. Everything you can see, touch, or feel is made of matter. Now, all matter is made of these tiny, tiny, tiny particles called atoms. Atoms are the smallest part of an element. So, in our Earth and in our solar system, atoms, those tiny particles, atoms can come in 118 different varieties. Okay, we have on Earth, we have 118 different types of atoms. And those atoms combine in different ways to make different substances, like carbon and nitrogen, and some other atoms will combine to make caffeine or soda. Hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms combine to make water that like you use to cook or that you drink with your meals. So what we're going to be talking about today is how a few of those atoms combine to make a couple different substances. So we're doing this just to kind of give you all an understanding of how atoms combine and how different atoms bond together to connect to make different substances. So I'm going to be using these 5 snap cubes, okay? Now these are just plastic cubes, and you see they have a spike on one end and these like holes, and they can fit in. You probably use these together, and we can put them together and play with them and make different things. And actually, one of my students made this really impressive unicorn with these snap cubes, which is pretty sweet. So I asked him if he would keep it together and let me hang on to it, and he did. I was just really impressed with that. So lots of things you can do with snap cubes. Today we are studying atoms with snap cubes. So let's pretend that each of these atoms are, each of these cubes are a different atom. Okay, so we have 5 atoms in total. Each different color cube is its own type of atom. So these red cubes will be oxygen atoms. These blue cubes will be hydrogen atoms. And this one green cube will be a carbon atom. So if we look at our paper, it says, if we look at number 1, I don't think you can quite see that, can you? Well, number 1 says, and you can look at it on your paper, draw and label your oxygen molecule, O2, in the space below. So whenever we see something written, like if you look on here, it says O2. That means in this molecule, in this oxygen molecule, there are 2 oxygen atoms. So the O represents what type of atom it is. O stands for oxygen. And the small 2 right after it tells me how many of those oxygen atoms there are. So if it says O2, that means we need 2 oxygen molecules. Now, when atoms bond together, they connect and they form a bond. So we can say that this right here, this these 2 cubes that we're holding together, is kind of what an oxygen molecule looks like. Okay, oxygen molecule, it tells us, is O2. So O stands for oxygen, which is the type of atom we have, and the 2 right after O tells us how many oxygen atoms we have. So we need 2 oxygen atoms. And when those bond together, it makes a double, it gives us 2 of these red atoms put together. So number 1 says, draw and label your oxygen molecule O2 in the space below. So you will need to draw what you see here in this box, and then you need to be sure to label both parts of your oxygen molecule with the atomic symbol for oxygen, which is O. So you're going to draw this on that number 1 space, and then you're going to label both of these cubes with an O, because these are both representing oxygen atoms. Now, whenever atoms form together, they become a molecule. So, individually, we have 2 oxygen atoms. And those oxygen atoms bond together to make an O2 molecule. Because a molecule is whenever 2 or more atoms of any kind come together. So, that's number 1. Now, if we look at the question for number 2, it says, how many types of atoms are in this molecule? Well, I know that I have 2 atoms here, but this one is what type of atom? An oxygen. And this one is what type of atom? An oxygen as well. So, even though I have 2 atoms, are they the same type of atom? Yep, they sure are. So, number 2 says, how many types of atoms are in this molecule? How many types of atoms are here? How many kinds of atoms do we have here? Just oxygens. So we only have 1 type of atom. And now if we look at, you can write that down. We only have 1 type of atom. And now if you look down to number 3, it says how many oxygen atoms are in this molecule. So how many oxygen atoms are here? You can answer this one. How many oxygen atoms are in this molecule? You can back the video up if you need to. That will be your answer for number 3. Okay, now let's go to number 4, which is our second box right here. Number 4. Number 4 says, draw and label your water molecule H2O in the space below. So, if we are going to make a water molecule, and it tells us right here, to make our water molecule, we need let's see, right there. We need H2O. So the H stands for hydrogen, and the O stands for oxygen. Excuse me. The H stands for hydrogen, the O stands for oxygen. So I'm going to need how many hydrogen molecules? If it says H2, that tells me I need how many hydrogen molecules? 2 hydrogen molecules, or 2 hydrogen atoms. And how many oxygen atoms do I need? If it says H2O, remember the O is oxygen. Let me get my focus here. Remember, the O is oxygen, and there is no number after the O, so there's just 1 oxygen atom. So, how many hydrogen atoms do I need in H2? I need 2 hydrogen atoms. And how many oxygen atoms do I need with just an O? I need 1. So, here are 2 hydrogen atoms. Here is an oxygen atom. And now these are going to bond together with the oxygen in the middle. And it will form like that, so that we have a hydrogen on the sides. Fix that a little bit. So we have hydrogen on the sides in blue, right? Hydrogen, hydrogen, and we have oxygen in the middle. So remember, we said our water molecule was H2O. So H2, H is hydrogen. We need to have 2 hydrogen atoms, and O is just 1. So we only need 1 oxygen atom. Now, so on number 4 in your second box right here, it says draw and label your water molecule H2O. So you will need to draw this with the correct colors. So you'll need a red in the middle and 2 blue atoms on the side. And you'll need to label those. The hydrogens you label with H, the oxygen you label with an O. So you should draw something like this, labeled HOH, to represent H2O. All right, let's move on to number 5. It says, how many types of atoms are in this molecule? How many of each type of atom? So let's look. You remember when we did O2, we only had 1 type of atom here. There are only oxygen atoms in this oxygen molecule. So we only have 1 type of atom. But now we have H2O, which means we now have more than 1 type of atom. We have hydrogen atoms, which is 1 type, and we have oxygen atoms, which is another type. So we have 2 types of atoms. And the second question to number 4 says, how many of each type of atom? Well, how many hydrogen atoms do we have? Boom, boom. We have 2 hydrogen atoms. And how many oxygen atoms do we have? Yep, just 1. So let's answer those. We have 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom in this water molecule. Now, if we look at number 6, it says, could a water molecule be broken down again into an oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms? So this is a water molecule. Remember, H2O is a water molecule. Could a water molecule, this, be broken down again into an oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms? Well, if we break it down, that means we're taking it apart. So if we take this apart, if we pull this water molecule apart, do we now have 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom? Yeah, for sure. So we just learned that we can, if we have a water molecule, we can break apart a water molecule to make 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. All right, so that's your answer for number 6. And now number 7, which we'll start right here for number 7 in this box. Number 7 says draw and label.
Fiona Rigby, please come to the office. Fiona Rigby, come to the office.
All right. So number 7 says to draw and label your carbon dioxide CO2 molecule in the space below. Well, remember we said green cube would be our carbon. And we know that oxygen is what color? Red. So if our molecule is CO2, so how many C's do we have? Well, it says C, and there is not a small number after it, so we only need 1 carbon atom, only 1 C, only 1 carbon atom. And next is O2, so that means the O stands for oxygen, and the small 2 after the O tells us how many we need. So O2 means we need 2 oxygen atoms. And these are going to bond very similarly to how the water molecule is bonded. So our 1 oxygen atom bonds to one side of the carbon. The other oxygen atom bonds to the other side of the carbon atom. And now we have successfully made a CO2 molecule, also known as carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide molecule is CO2. You might remember this from when we learned about photosynthesis at the beginning of the year. Remember, CO2 is what plants breathe in, and as plants breathe in CO2, they use the carbon dioxide, and then plants breathe out oxygen back into the atmosphere. And then humans and animals breathe in oxygen into our lungs. And then when we breathe out carbon dioxide, which then goes into a plant, and then the plant releases oxygen molecules back out, which we breathe in, and we exhale carbon dioxide molecules, which go where? Back to the plant to make oxygen, which then goes where? Back to humans and animals, so we can breathe it in and live, and then we give out carbon dioxide again, and it just keeps going back and forth like that. We breathe out carbon dioxide, plants breathe it in. Plants breathe out oxygen, we breathe it in. And we just keep trading off like that to make a very sustainable ecosystem for us and for plants. All right, but back to, sorry, I got off track. Back to number 7, we have to draw and label our carbon dioxide molecule, this puppy right here. So remember, we need to draw it with the correct colors in the correct position. We need to make sure we label our oxygen atoms with an O, and we need to label our carbon atom with a C. Okay, so oxygen atoms are labeled with an O in red. This green carbon atom is labeled with a C. Now, for the very last question, and then we're done. Number 8 says, how many types of atom are in this molecule? How many of each type of atom? All right, we already know what we're looking at here, right? This is our CO2 molecule. How many types of atoms are in this molecule? Well, oxygen is one type, carbon is one type, and oxygen again. So we have oxygen, one type, and carbon is the second type. So there are only 2 types of atoms. And now how many of each atom? Well, that's extremely easy. How many oxygen atoms are there? 2. And how many carbon atoms are there? Just 1. So that is your answer for number 8. And that's it. You're good to go. Be sure that you are labeling these. Be sure you're labeling all of your atoms and your molecules. Be sure you are using the correct colors, because that is important. If we had a bunch of blue blocks squished together, we wouldn't know which one was supposed to be which. We wouldn't know what's an atom, what's a hydrogen, what's a carbon. So the colors are very important. Remember, oxygen is red, hydrogen is blue, carbon is green. All right, gang. Thanks for your attention today. Be sure to keep up with your science journals, and be sure to keep up with your table of contents. So the page that you put this on, you need to be sure that that is listed in your table of contents on your science journal. That's one of the things we'll be looking for during our science journal check, which is a test grade. All right, guys. Be good, be easy. This is Mr. McCrary, and I will see you next time.